We all thought that'd be the end of Tony Dixon when they abandoned the back path. Tony MacDonald, the life and soul of the party. But where's this chairman I've signed for? Liam Delap puts himself about, but Tony Rogers would have showed him the way. What Iain O'Connell was doing up, trying to get in a conservative window.
I think he lost his key or something.
Oh, well, that was the story. So I bet £1,000 gold in, wasn't it? It's 50 plus.
Just tell us some of the players. I mean, we mentioned Jason, you mentioned Dave Walker there, obviously Frank Ovard, but there was a whole...
Loads of them. I remember another pub meeting, we signed Tony Dixon, Dicko.
The Des Walker non-league football.
Lovely man. And we went up to South London, Chris and I, to talk to Chris. Didn't know him to speak to, but I knew of his capabilities. He was the only one that kept Lenny Lee in check. He played for Tunbridge, and Lenny didn't get a kit for a couple of games, and Chris said, I want to sign him. I said, well, yeah, that's fine. So we met Tony up in London, South London, and his only reservation, and because of the times, was that he was black, and
really?
How's he going to fit in down here? And I said, well, there's not going to be a problem. I mean, we're going back a long way.
We're going back to a very bygone age, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. But that was the thinking then. Well, we had one or two black players. Alfie Barrett was a bit of a cult hero with Dover.
Terry Cordice?
Yeah, Terry Cordice. But so anyway, I said, won't be a problem, Tony. And so he came down and he loved it. Yeah.
And the fans were great, weren't they?
So absolutely. No, he was a player that was so unassuming, you know, and but could he run and could he cover? We all thought that'd be the end of Tony Dixon when they abandoned the back path where the goalie could pick it up, because Tony's
all the time.
Tony's rolling life was to get the one that rolled it back to Mo, and
he used to hoof it all the time.
Oh yeah. But he was a really good signing, Tony Dixon. Tony MacDonald, Macca, life and soul of the party. You see, and those players stayed for a long, long time.
It was really sad, actually, because I think he could have gone on and played more games, but sadly he broke his leg, didn't he?
He did. Yeah, he had a very bad injury. But again, we seem to sign a lot of players a lot to say for themselves, but on the field they could do it. And Macca played with Tony Dixon and Dave Walker, Iain O'Connell. I mean, really, if I look back at those years, we hardly lost the game, and I think one year, and my memory is not that good, but we conceded 19 goals in the league season, lost 2 games all season, and you know, those sort of players, that they were the bedrock of our team. We've got a scores at the other end, but yeah, Macca and Dicko, when you think about them, they were a formidable pair. And say with Dave Walker as well, we didn't lose many goals or games. Chris was very sorted in that area.
Morris Munden.
Mo came over. He'd been at Folkestone, hadn't he, for quite a long time. So many years he spent there, but he was at Folkestone. But he came, and first time I met Mo, we lost to Met Police in a trophy match, or maybe an FA Cup match up at
probably FA Cup, because we always losing the FA Cup.
Maybe. And Mo was the goalie for that game, I think. And the first time I met him was after the game. It was a good start, Mo. And well, I think it was Morris in those days. It wasn't Mo when I first met him, Morris. But anyway, I mean, he turned out to be, well, legends are used quite frequently these days, but he was a big part of the success. We only lost 19 goals in one season. I mean, that wasn't just down to Mo, but with the back four that we had, it was not surprising. So yeah, because the big one we signed with was when we went into the conference was Dave Leworthy.
Yeah, I wanted to get onto that. So David Leworthy, of course, we went up with a fantastic defensive record, and wasn't it the thought process we just need a top striker? So you went out and signed the top conference striker at the time.
He was
£50,000 as well.
Yeah, we knew, Chris and I, we talked about we needed someone, and Leworthy was obviously, everybody knew of David that followed football. And I suppose I did the groundwork. We went to the conference AGM and prize giving in Blackpool, I think it was that year. And I met up with the chairman of Farnborough and said, I just sort of mentioned his name. He said, yeah, he said they needed money. All clubs have those situations. But that they were going to stick to £50,000. But
just to put that into context, that was a non-league record at the time.
It was, yeah, it was a record. But I spoke to the chairman, and then when we'd spoken to David, and David was happy to to come our way. We structured it over a year. We had a fundraising scheme. We had what we called the Dover Striker, which had at its peak just over 7,000 members, £7,000 a week.
What was that? £1 a week?
£1 a week.
Yeah.
And we had people out collecting money, and we had a 200 club going as well. And of course, we generated revenue from sponsorship, so we were able to do it. But we did structure it, and I always remember I had a letter at once the third payment had gone through on the anniversary of signing David, from the chairman of Barnborough, complimenting us on the way we conducted the business. And he said and he'd been in charge of in football a long time. He said it's one of the easiest ways that he dealt with a player and a club, and compliments to Dover Athletic. So I was quite pleased with that. But yeah, David made an impact, didn't he? I think his first game he scored a hat-trick.
We should have had a hat-trick. He hit the post.
Oh, well, you've got a better memory than me. Yeah, I say. But yeah, certainly an impact. And yeah, again, David he lived in Havant and Waterlooville. He lived down that way, still does, still lives at Southsea. Always the first one at the ground, David. He used to come up with his wife, Helen, and the kiddies in those days. Was always there 1:15. Always the first one there. He was always there before I got there. I used to get up the ground, between 1 and 1:30, but David would be up there. And so not an ounce of problems.
He was an ultra professional, wasn't he?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, he'd been at Tottenham and 1 or 2 other clubs, and he'd spent, I don't know how many goals he got for Farnborough the year before we signed him.
50 plus.
Well, I was just going to say, it got close to 50, Jason, I think so.
50 plus in all comps.
Is that right? Yeah, well, so we knew what we were signing. So about £1,000 a goal then, wasn't it, if it's 50 plus? But yeah, he did ever so well for us. But yeah, we had a lot of other players we signed.
Because Corey Brown was really good that season, because he was a midfielder.
Corey Brown.
Yeah, Chris made him a striker.
He played up top with David. I remember one game. I think it's the first season in the conference. We went to Macclesfield and won 2-0 up there. And I think Corey got one and David got one, or Corey got both of them.
And Russell Milton, of course, wasn't that?
Russell Milton, we signed Russell. I went over to Folkestone. He'd just come back from Hong Kong, and Chris got hold of him. And I always remember, first game, don't ask me where we were going, it's an away game, and I gave Russell the fixtures for the season. And Russ sat on the back seat and he was going, I said, "What's that, mate?" He said, "Cool," he said, "all these games we got to play." I said, "Well, yeah, probably 42 games in the league then." I said, "Well, you've been in Hong Kong too long. You used to play about 8 games a season out there," and that was his lot. But yeah, Russell turned out really, really one of his big mates with Dom Castle, wasn't he? And him and Dom were. Oh yeah. You remember Dom played for the reserve?
Dom,
yeah. Again, you trigger memories. Part of the success of our club, we did have a reserve side. Dover Reserves, and they used to play in front of 200, 300, 400 people in those days. A lot of players, and Chris could bring 1 or 2 of them players in cup games, but a lot of them players were local, so they attracted local interest. And yeah, so it cost a bit of money to keep a reserve side out, not in terms of wages or anything like that, but you had to kit and balls and travel and that sort of thing. But nobody runs reserve sides these days. It's academy, isn't it? Which is fair enough. That's the way the world's gone.
And of course, Lenny Lee. He was an absolute goal machine, wasn't he?
He certainly was. Yeah, he ended up the record goal scorer for Dover Athletic. He scored well over 160 goals in 2 spells at Dover. The 2 spells were interrupted because of my obstinance, I suppose. Believe it or not, we signed him in the first season, back end of the first season. I think he played about 20 odd games in the first season, and he recants the tale, so I'm not talking out of turn, but we agreed terms, or I thought we had, for the following season, and then he came back to me halfway through the summer to say basically wanted a bit more money, and I thought I was a bit green behind the gills and obstinate. That's the way I am, and it was only probably £5 or £10 a week in those days extra, and I said, "No, we've agreed a deal." And so Lenny trotted off back to Margate, or Thanet, I think they were called in those days. But he was just that one season, and he came back the following season, I think the 85 season. We got him back, Chris was already in then, and away he went. But so we didn't fall out, but we begged to differ. Lennie was as obstinate as I was, and so it didn't happen for about 9 months. We lost him for 9 months. So, but then I say he came back, and as you say, he was just. He was so quick. I mean, Lennie would, and on the way Chris played him, there was so much grasp behind the back players that he just bombed it over the top. And Lennie, on his own admission, would have missed as many as he scored, but he did score a lot of goals.
One player that I was very fond of back then was Timmy Dixon, and it's always lovely to catch up with him in the centre spot after games or before matches. But yeah, local lad, and was captain as well at one point.
Yeah, he ended up captain at some time with Chris. Yeah, we signed him, and well, I know he played out in Ireland. He'd been with Southampton as a young lad, didn't quite make it there. Went to Ireland. He played in Ireland. I think he played in Finland for a while, and then he came to Dover. 85, 86, I suspect, something like that. I think he made his debut against Ashford, who were always not arch enemies, but they were all big, tough matches they were always. And I think he scored probably a couple of goals that day, and we won quite easily. But yeah, a local boy, so therefore he had a lot of people that wanted to see him do well, including of course, us as a board of directors. But he did really, really, really well. Went right through, won the Southern League with us, and then into the top league, and then into the conference. So unfortunately, he broke his leg a couple of times, and like us all, we all get older and a little bit slower. So, but he did really, really very well. I'm not sure how many games he played, but quite a lot, and scored quite a lot, and very, very popular in the dressing room.
There were so many characters in that dressing room, of course, and who can forget Bert Davis? I mean, I used to remember him selling, I don't know, sports-wearing clothes in the back of his car.
Well, that was Bert, and I think probably people remember Bert for his attire and what he fitted out some of the Dover players. And I know we bought some training kit from him as a club, and they were all in some sort of pink gear from memory. But Bert, he was a character. I didn't see him. Chris signed him, said he wanted to sign another centre-half, and he signed him midweek. And I remember we played the first game that he was present at was away Dunstable of all places, which we won 3-0, I think, that day. And I'd not met Bert until after the game, when he came into the social club where we all ended up and said, "Well, where's this chairman I've signed for?" And of course I was sitting there, and he came over and he was making us all laugh within about 10 minutes of him sitting there. But yeah, Chris used him sparingly, shall we say, in first team appearances, and he was mainly a sub. The stock joke was always if we travel away in a coach and Bert had been sub, but halfway home on a coach journey, Bert would come and plonk himself down at me and say, "Well, Mr. Chairman, now I'm not in this football team, and there's me trying to humour him and say, well, the man behind us makes that decision." But yeah, he was a character. Everybody, I say, got on with him, and yeah, it's just another one that made the world go around, really.
And of course, there was dear Barry Little, who's sadly no longer with us. He was taken from us very young, wasn't he? But what a terrific midfielder he was.
Oh, marvellous player. And again, a lot of the dressing room, he had so many come from South London, so he had that character about him. But yeah, wonderful player. I think he came from Fisher, the previous club. He was at Fisher, and Chris got him down. And yeah, he played a lot of games for us, and it was such a tragic part for everybody. Well, obviously Barry and his family, diagnosed with a brain tumour, and I went to see him a couple of times in hospital, and it was very, very sad. I think he was 30 or 31 when he died. So, but yeah, whilst he was with us, he was a very popular member of staff, and as I say, always got something to say, because South London, they're always quick off the mark, aren't they? But yeah, a lovely player and a lovely man.
One of my favourite memories growing up watching Dover was that goal that Dent scored from the halfway line against Dorchester. We just scored, they took the kick off, but came to Denty, and he sent it sailing over the goalie.
Can't add much to that, Justin. Outrageous, wasn't it? I say, yeah, we just scored, so you probably think you're going to catch your breath, but not Denty. He looked up, and yeah, he's hit it from the centre circle, wasn't it? And sailed over the goalie. So we managed to get 2 goals in about 90 seconds. So, and we were well underway again. Him and Colin Bluden, they played a lot of games together, and again, a good partnership between the both of them.
And of course, Tony Rogers, Basher.
Basher, yeah. Basher, I think, again, scored a lot of goals. Really, really old traditional centre forward. Yeah, there's a player now playing in the Premier League, that Liam Delap, puts himself about, but Tony Rogers would have showed him the way because big man, strong man, scored his goals, and I think he scored a hat-trick the year we won the league when we finished up 6-1 at Alvechurch. Tony got certainly 2 goals and probably 3 of those. So, yeah, a big impression on Dover.
And of course, when Bill Williams was manager, we had Dave Clark and Simon Wormall in midfield. 2 absolutely terrific footballers, weren't they?
Absolutely. Bill found those players, he knew the players, brought them down. And I know Dave Clark, in one of the polls on the forum some time ago, was in the top 3 of the Dover athletic players that they voted for. So, very, very skillful player, and tenacious. Simon Wormall, I remember he made his debut. I don't know why I remember these debuts, but I did. The first game he played, we were at Leek Town. We lost 2, and Simon made his debut in that game, but didn't score. But I'd say he scored a lot of goals for us, Simon did, for over a period of 2 or 3 years. And yeah, they come to mind, as you say, as really good midfield players. When you remember those 2 and Joe Jackson, probably we mentioned before, we had some really good, powerful players in midfield. See, a lot of these players now, they come and go, don't they, mate? I was invited about 3 years ago to go on a WhatsApp group by Iain O'Connell.
Oh,
right.
He's a character.
Yeah, absolutely. But on this WhatsApp group, it's only Dover players, that's all. Iain O'Connell's on there, Dicko, Tony Rogers, Colin Blueden, Dave Leworthy, Paul Pilkington, Stuart Mundy, Jimmy Strouts, Timmy Dixon, Macca. They're all on this group, and it's banter. It's really good, and they, without exception, they all say their best footballing days were at Dover Athletic.
Do you remind me of a funny story mentioning Iain O'Connell. I don't know if you remember. Iain O'Connell, Jr.
You probably know more about these than I do. Perhaps some never got to my ears, Justin.
And David Leworthy. I went to a library to look at some old articles I've written. I found this article, and you had a bit of an injury crisis under John Ryan. I think
did we?
I think Iain O'Connell had fallen through a conservatory window.
Oh yes, I do know.
Junior Lewis had his foot run over by a forklift truck, and David Leworthy ended up crashing his car through his garage door into his kitchen.
That's right. So I've forgotten all of that. Yeah, but what Iain O'Connell was doing up, trying to get in a conservative window.
I think he lost his key or something.
Well, that was the story. Yeah, I'm not even sure which window he was trying to get in or out. But anyway, yeah, that's right. That is a story that comes back to mind. But yeah, all those players now. I mean, they say I've got a picture of all of them, including 1 or 2 reserve players that were there. Well, they used to go for a few seasons. Went to remember the Circus Tavern up the A13 just through the Dartford. We used to go up there once at the end of the season, and I said, someone put it on the WhatsApp group a while ago, and I said, I made a point. I said, well, those days don't happen anymore. I said, players nowadays, and it's the way of the world, they sign a year, maybe 2 years on loan, whatever. But our players, for that period of the Beezer Homes into the conference, were here 5, 6, 7 years. And,
they were on sort of contracts over a couple of years, weren't they?
Yeah, we used to put. Yeah, they'd be 2-year contracts, most of them. Some would be.
And you'd even renew them.
We'd renew them. Yeah, because obviously people like Jason was there for 6, 7 years. Lenny Lee was, Mark Harrop, unsung heroes who were Mark. I mean, Mark was. I used to joke with Mark. I said, "Do you ever go to work, Mark?" He said, "Well, not a lot." He was a civil servant, but he was such a good sportsman. If he wasn't playing for Dover, he'd be playing for the civil service, cricket, badminton, squash, golf. He'd play all those things for the civil service. So I'll be away. What's the name this week? I said, "Where are you going?" "Oh, we're playing Norfolk or something like that for the civil service at badminton or something." He was always a terrific sportsman. Never drank.
Is that right?
No. He'd always.
How did he manage that?
In that crowd. Well, at that time, no blackcurrant. He'd have lemonade and blackcurrant or something like that.
Just finally on the player front, because he's the current manager, Jake LaBelle, who of course
Yeah.
Under the Bill Williams years and beyond, actually. What was your impressions of him when he was first coming through?
Well, yeah, very young Jake DeVille. As I say, I've known Jake for since he first came down there in the family. He was at Dagenham and Redbridge. He played for, I think they say, Bill knew of him because he's local to Dover, and came down there and played for Bill for quite a long time. And I've got a picture. He won one of the awards again at probably Dover young player or the first team player. So Jake's done very well and doing even better now, I'd say. I said to before to people, it's reminiscent now of what's happening probably this season of what we were starting to do in 85, 86 when Chris came. We got some good players in and Jake seems to have got a good squad around him. Plays the same sort of game, you know. Very much like Chris in don't jump up and down when we win, and he certainly doesn't jump up and down when we lose. And that's what it's about. Life's about that, isn't it? And I think Jake's well on the way to being a very successful manager, certainly with Dover anyway.